Joy, and I'm sure you saw the title of this video. Today we are going to be talking about reasons that women don't leave abusive relationships. Now, most of you know this as my story, so I just want to start out by saying I have been in way too many abusive relationships, too many to count, way too many that nobody has had to go through, and I know many of you who are watching have. At this point, unless you met an amazing high school sweetheart right out of high school and that's who you dated and got married to, every woman I know has some form of a horror story on this topic, which scares me and concerns me. Why is this such an issue? But I feel like a lot of people, and especially a lot of men, have a lot of misconception and misunderstanding about why women stay in an abusive relationship. In fact, if you've seen it, I've been covering the Onision topic, and one of Onision's kind of big things is, I kicked her out, I got rid of her, and therefore he's in the right, and she kept coming back to me. Why is it many women in abusive relationships, even if they do leave, come back? And why do many women never leave? I want to give some insight that you might not hear a lot of other places. Something that almost happened to me, that I almost fell victim to, and I think every positive thing in my life and outside of it that helped encourage me to get out, because I got out at just the right time, I probably wouldn't have survived. And I'll tell you about that, not just because it was emotionally difficult, because I was getting physically hurt. There was a whole nother angle that I want to talk about that I think most people don't with these things. I've heard so many men get judgmental and say women should leave, there are organizations to help them, they are pieces of crap if they don't. You do everything in your power to get away from that person. If you have to get out there and crawl on your hands and knees and almost die, you do it. Ha! Oh, what a cute fallacy that y'all have. Well, first of all, many times abusers don't show their true colors right away, narcissists and sociopaths. It's an introduction. In fact, in the beginning, sometimes it can last a couple months. There's a whole lot of love bombing. And that in itself, when you don't know what's happening and don't know what that is, super confusing. And many of these issues that the abusers have, again, they don't come out immediately. Sometimes it comes out slowly, in a trickle, in a situation where it's kind of like they talk about, if a frog's in a pan and you're slowly boiling the frog to death, they don't realize until it's too late and they can't jump out, right? Versus if you just turn up the heat real quick. That's how many abusers operate. Now, not all of them. Many times they'll woo you, they'll love bomb, and then once they get you in a position like they get you pregnant or they get you married, something like that, then it immediately cuts off. But every abuser is a bit different. But the majority that I have known, it's a slow, steady progression of control, of trying to change you, of trying to inflict their beliefs, their wants, everything onto you. And it's so slow and gradual many times. And because you were love bombed so much, it can be so psychologically confusing that you wake up and you don't know who you are. This is also why, and I've been talking about this with the Onision videos, many victims end up acting out and then they look like the crazy ones when it comes to an abusive relationship. It psychologically gaslights you so far that by the time you realize something's wrong, you psychologically are too far gone to know what's wrong and even how to get help. And I feel like this is something we don't talk about. We don't talk about the victims and what they go through psychologically as to why they can't get out. And there's all the reasons that are in mainstream popular narrative, right? Well, I don't want to leave because I'll be lonely. I don't have support. I'm scared I can't do it on my own. But for many women, when they are nonstop inundated in that, psychologically, they get to a point they have a hard time knowing what is reality, what is fact. They start thinking it's all their faults. It must be all them. Because the guy was great in the beginning or for a while, and then suddenly did these, maybe not suddenly, but for a lot of women, these gradual changes that are so gradual, you can't see it. It's not like, for many abusers, it's not like they go from love bombing immediately to choking you and hurting you. That's typically not how this goes, right? There is a progression that leads up to it. This is how it's been with my abusers. There is a progression. And by the time you know something's wrong, you're so psychologically gone that you don't know what to do or how to fix it. And then you think you can't because it's all your fault. And that even if you were to leave, you're just going to screw something up somewhere else. So there's a very different psychology that I wish people would go into and how that works. That's why it makes me angry, the trope of men always saying, she's crazy, the woman's crazy, the woman's crazy. Well, why do you think she's acting that way? Maybe there's a reason that's not for all women. Some women are just awful, let's be honest. But I'm talking about in abusive situations, and I feel like abuse happens more often than not because men feel way more entitled to take from women, make women how they want, inflict and force their hormonal urges on women, all kinds of things that women in society look at, and many of them say, I guess this is acceptable and what I'm supposed to do. And we can get lost in that. There's another piece, there's another element to this that I want to talk about that I feel like most people don't talk about. Number one, many times women stay because children are involved. Women know they can't get the children out in a safe way. And as a result, if the woman did leave, then she leaves her children wide open to that abuse. And there are programs and places that can help, but sometimes those places only go so far. For instance, if you had a child that had special needs, they had certain psychological needs, or if they had some sort of compromised health issue, many of these places, right, wouldn't take them because they wouldn't want to be liable or at risk when it comes to that child. Person can have a sick child and they just couldn't qualify for a lot of the programs that are out there. I'm not saying that happens all the time. I am saying that can happen, and it's a part of the thought process. So some people say, well, if it's really abuse, then the woman needs to find a way out there to help her kids. Here's something else we don't talk about. Abuse consistently that you go through can mess up your health, to where you can't leave. And for some reason, we never talk about this. And I think it's because it's only becoming recently that we're really understanding the nervous system. So I found for me, right, and I've told you guys this story, so go check it out in the Anision videos, of the breaking point for me leaving. I had a dream. Thank God I had a dream that basically showed I was working, and this was what was happening with this relationship. He wasn't working, worked my butt off, built a successful business, built wealth for us, was so excited while he ran around doing horrible things like R-wording people, like physically forcing himself on people in front of me, like in the business I built. A horrible dream. And at the very end, he gets back with his ex-wife and says, I'm taking everything, and I'm left with nothing. And I woke up and I was like, I need to get out. Thank God I did. 8 months later, I had a full-blown, what we didn't know then was a POTS and dysautonomia episode that lasted for, back and forth, that flare-up lasted for, it's still going on. Some days it would be better, some days it would be worse, some weeks would be better, some weeks would be worse. And had I been with him and that happened, his mindset back then was, he would call it, you need to kill yourself off. You need to kill off every want, everything you think you're supposed to have, every desire in you, and do what God wants. I get the concept. Spiritually, I understand. It's like, let go of your wants and go where you are, go where you're led to go, or whatever presents itself to you in your life. You know, do what is present. Like, I get the understanding of letting go of the ego, but basically, he would put me in compromising health positions. I remember one time we were in a Walmart and I started to black out because I was menstruating, and with the issues we didn't know I had, even though I had issues, nobody would believe me. I got punished and reprimanded because if God wants me to pass out, I'm just supposed to pass out in Walmart and don't bother him. This was a man that had zero compassion for other people's physical issues. Scary, scary stuff. So thank God I got out of there before my system really crashed. But when you are under severe extreme stress, you can make your nervous system sick in a way that can be almost impossible to figure out if you don't have help and you don't have support. That would have been me, and I would have been trapped. And going through that and being where I'm at now, I have even deeper compassion for women who get stuck. I knew a woman, had several kids, was stuck in her situation with a guy who was abusive and cheating on her. But she was sick. She was sick and could not afford to leave, and really couldn't even afford to get better. When somebody puts you under so much stress and toxicity, and many times in those relationships, you are living to make sure, A, the other person is taken care of, and B, that anything that could set them off doesn't. That level of heightened stress nonstop, it'll mess up your adrenals, it'll mess up your cortisol, all of that can mess up your hormones, and it will overtax your nervous system. And that's what I go through with dysautonomia. My nervous system doesn't work correctly. And it took me till 36 to get properly diagnosed. because we don't listen to women. We just label them as crazy. We don't help them with help. We don't give them really hardly any healthcare options. We don't listen to them when they're sick. And then it's acceptable in a society to allow them to be in abusive situations, but they're crazy. Why are men not called crazy? Because when they do something to us, they typically punch us in the face, they physically hurt us, or they kill us. It's very, hashtag not all men. If you're not one of those guys, welcome. We need more of you. Thank you for being a decent one. But even the good ones, y'all know there's a bunch of turds in your punch bowl, just like there's a bunch of lady turds in our punch bowl. We get it, right? So I'm not saying that, there aren't good men or that women are perfect, because that's obviously not the case. But I want men to understand when I hear this, and I've heard so many judgmental men about this, by the time the woman realizes what's going on, many times, psychologically, it's too late for her to know what to do, or, and this can be a double whammy, not only psychologically is it too late, sometimes at the same time, you start getting ill in ways that you can't actually go out and do it independently and function on your own. How are your children, if you have children in the situation, going to be able to rely on an ill parent? So the ill person leaves knowing that they can't make money to take care of themselves, and then they have no way of getting the children out. A lot of these charities, some of them aren't going to take you on if you're chronically sick. They're not going to take it on. They can't have the liability. And I'm speaking on some of this from experience. I remember there was one time my health was so bad, I was in so much physical pain, that I wanted to go to a mental hospital. This was a couple years ago, before I got as better as I did. And I called some places and I said, I'm so physically sick, I don't want to be here anymore. And you know what they told me? They said, we can't help you. We don't take people like you. What? Their suggestion was see your doctor and get on narcotics. We don't have a system set up for women who don't want to be on the planet, or people. If you don't want to be on the planet because you are in extreme physical pain or extreme illness, there's no system set up for you. They're just going to heavily medicate you. So just the fact that the psychological system didn't want to take me because they're like, we can't be liable for your physical issues. They're like, we can put you on meds to help your mind, but none of that is going to actually fix your physical body if that's what's happening. And they won't take the liability health-wise. They're like, we're not set up for that. Even though we didn't know fully what was going on. We were getting pieces to the puzzle at that time, but we didn't know. So my point is to say to men and just other people who get really judgmental of women that way, don't be too judgmental, because how the woman gets to that place, how it can happen, and then what can subsequently happen afterward as she's figuring it out, sometimes for some women, they get in positions where it's just too late. Now, I always want to advocate for women, and I would say if you're in that situation, find a way to fight for yourself. It may not work. You may have to stay for a while. I get it, right? And I'm not saying to somebody, stay. I'm just saying this thing is not a black and white thing as a lot of people want to see it. It's not a black and white situation. And it's not that women are just not courageous or this, that, and the other. Sometimes this can affect your health where you get so sick, you can't physically walk out the door, and you're going to have very little help even from the agencies that are there. So I would say if you know somebody in this situation, every situation is different. Don't be too judgmental of that person. Understand it's a process for them to understand what's going on, and hopefully it's not too late to where they are so physically affected that they can't leave. I thank God every day that I don't know why, out of all the abuse and all the things I went through, the night I had that dream, a small thing, this guy punishing me by taking away the television in the room so I couldn't watch TV before I went to bed, to go work at a job where only I worked to pay all of his bills, and he got us $1,300 of car payments that I could barely afford because he was chosen by God not to work. Insane situation, guys. Makes me mad that I ever did that, but I also look back now and I'm grateful, and I know why it happened. I think something in my soul wanted and needed to experience that. Maybe so I could get to this point and try to help educate other women on what happens and what we go through. But just don't be too hard on women if you know they're in a situation. They're in the process of figuring it out. And sometimes it takes time. That breaking point for every woman is going to be different. And sometimes they're just too sick. And do they really need more judgment when they're already struggling psychologically and health-wise, or do they need our compassion? I think they need compassion. And I don't understand sometimes why men get so judgmental about this. I think they do because, well, men have been taught in society that they can be assured and right. Women were taught to constantly apologize for ourselves and constantly second and third guess. We are conditioned on some levels to be gaslit, to be lesser intellectually and in every other capacity towards men. It's subtle, but it's there. And I just thought I'd talk about it. So what do you think? Sound off in the comments. Do you think I'm onto something? I mean, I know I am. I know scientifically I'm right about how stress affects the body. This is just something I wanted to point out. Some women can't leave. They physically can't. And we don't have a system, a healthcare system set up to actually help women with their healthcare, much less do we believe them. Okay, guys, I think I'll end the video for here now. If you like the video, help me out. Give me a thumbs up, subscribe, and hit that notification button. That way, when you do, you'll know when I upload. And yeah. And leave a comment. Tell me what you think. I'm curious. Maybe there's something I'm missing. Let me know. Share this content with other women you think that might enjoy this, that might get something from this. Maybe women that are going through it. I would hope that if maybe for some people that watch, if they do, if I'm lucky enough to have people that watch, I'm so lucky to have the audience that I do. Maybe for some women, it will be the wake-up call that I got from my subconscious in a dream, which thank God that I did. I kind of look at that more as my spiritual side, and that whatever big positive entities or forces that are out there that are helpful to us was trying to signal to me. And I'm so grateful that they got me out of harm's way just in time. Okay, guys, take care and blessings to the next video. I'm wishing everybody lots of love, and I'm giving y'all lots of hugs and kisses. Bye, guys.